Claire Munde is an editor at Royal Media Service, Citizen Digital. And Claire Munde is a digital media and communications expert with over 9 years of experience in Kenya's top newsrooms. She is currently the digital editor for Wananchi Reporting, a citizen journalism platform domiciled on the Citizen Digital website. The Wananchi Reporting platform's efforts to take citizen journalism to the next level were recognized in 2022. With a Google News initiative putting in funding to expand the portal's operations. Claire has a master's degree with distinction in human resource management as well as training in journalism, a blend which has enabled her to lead a team to get positive results when developing story ideas and new projects. On the social media front, Claire hosts weekly discussions live on Citizen Digital X Spaces on human interest topics, finance, and human resource development matters. She also hosts a weekly podcast on Citizen Digital's Facebook page called The Disruption, which is a financial literacy show geared towards Gen Z and millennials. Another round of applause for Claire Munde. So Claire, over to you to introduce your panelists and go on with this conversation. Karibu sana.
Thank you very much for that. This is the last session of the afternoon, so I want us to be as engaged as possible. And as we start that, I'd like you to think of 3 things that matter to you in your workplace. This is the HR edition. We're talking about perks and recreation. So just think about that. Then at the end of this session, I'll sample 2 of you and see if your thoughts have changed. Now, I'd like to invite my panelists on stage, and I'll start with Jay Larson, who is the co-founder and CEO of Asha, which is a software and services startup that serves clients in the US and Kenya. Jay is a seasoned entrepreneur, educator, and strategic games enthusiast who serves as the CEO and co-founder of Asha. His diverse background includes being a Duke economics graduate and co-founder of Tunapanda Institute and Asha Anapanda Limited. Welcome, Jay. Next on stage, we have Margaret Twashira, who is the head of people department at Samsung Electronics East Africa. Margaret's illustrious career in people management spans over 15 years, encompassing diverse industries such as startups, logistics, fast-moving consumer goods, and the advertising sector. Now, for the past 3 years, she has been at the head of people department at Samsung Electronics East Africa, where she has made a significant impact on the organization's human capital landscape. Welcome, Margaret. And last but not least, we have Chris Otundo, who is the country lead for Brighter Monday. He is a seasoned executive with over a decade of experience in digital talent management and various people disciplines. He has a wealth of experience in areas such as organization design, job analysis, job evaluation, competency modeling, competency assessment, talent acquisition, culture assessment, change management, and HR analytics. He has held several leadership positions, including the role of Global Talent Acquisition Lead and Strategic Initiatives for Africa and Canada at the MasterCard Foundation. Welcome to you, Chris. Now, as we start this conversation, I'd like to give a little anecdote of a conversation I had with somebody who I can see is part of our listeners right now. And we're talking about what matters to you as a person in a job space. I can see you can see me because we had a very robust conversation. And he told me that growth is very important, but growth means different things to different people. So for him, he said one time, he's a Gen Z, by the way. I need to add that. He said one time he had been working at a space for some time and he felt there was no growth. So one time he checked into work at 7 a.m. and by 7:30 p.m. he just switched off his laptop and said, you know what, I'm done. I'm gone. I don't have another job opportunity, but we'll sort that when we come to it. So I was just thinking, wow, that's really good. The audacity of Gen Z. And it's very different for millennials and for other generations. So I want us to talk a little bit and start the conversation with you, Margaret, about how the workspace has evolved in the last 10 years. You know, there's a real focus on Gen Z right now and the kind of work that means something to them these days. So tell us about what is the change that we are seeing in the workspace and what do we need to pay attention to when we are coming to Gen Zs?
I think a lot has changed, but also there's some things that have not changed. And a lot means that the Gen Zs want to see that they are being valued, they are being heard, and they make decisions as well. And when they have ideas, you take them, listen to what they have to say. They have lots of ideas. I also say it's their time. There are lots of Gen Zs right now. A lot of the millennials and the others are going out of the employment arena. So the fact that they come into the office and they do the same thing and no one is listening to them, their managers are not there, it's do, it tires them. You need to incorporate them, you need to make sure they work as a team. They love being together. They love to be listened to, and they do not like to work in terms, enjoys where they are, the work environment, even the office layout is for them. So I feel those are really the areas that we need to look out for when we are dealing with Gen Zs, the humanistic part of work, because work tends to be a bit more of do. These are my targets, do. We forget about them.
Okay, thanks for that. And we'll come back to what having some structure but not too much structure looks like, Margaret. But I'd like to go to you, Chris. What do you see within the recruitment space when you're recruiting for different levels of positions? We have the Gen Zs, we have the millennials, we have other generations. What do you see people who are looking for jobs really value when they're looking for those opportunities?
Right. So I think the context in which we operate is one where technology has disrupted the way we live, the way we work, the way we exist. And so depending on who's talking, recruitment has changed significantly. Or rather, talent acquisition, looking for talent, convincing them to join an organization. What matters to them really has changed. The older generation, the ones perhaps older than the millennials, are concerned with structure, are concerned with loyalty, and so they want stability. So they go for an organization that they know will sustain them for life. Whatever they studied in school will be appreciated long term, and so they looked for organizations like those. Today, the Gen Z, the millennials, are more concerned, or rather are growing up in an environment that is seeing significant change. They're growing up in an environment that leverages technology in everything that we do. And so if they join an organization that's not seen to be agile, that's not seen to be progressive, that's not attractive. If they find an organization that is insisting that they stay in one position long term, that's not attractive. So to your question around what attracts them, they are going to be attracted to organizations that will provide them with opportunities to explore numerous roles, allow them to learn, allow them to explore different things, and that leverages technology. If I find an organization that is old school, that is not as progressive in terms of the tools they use, then that's also not an attractive organization. So these are certain things that they will be concerned with. More and more, what we see is also a concern for organizations that are doing meaningful work, that are concerned with making an impact on the community and on the environment. That is beginning to be seen as something that concerns the Gen Zs and the millennials. So I guess that's it for now.
Okay, thanks for that. And you've put up a very important point about agility and meaningful work. And I'd just like to know, how many of you here are Gen Zs? Just raise your hands. Okay, millennials? Oh, there are more millennials over here. Okay. Good. Now, Jay, you've worked in the startup space for a bit. What do you see as the kind of things that employees are looking for when they're looking for work? Is it the way Chris talked about meaningful work? What kind of perks mean something to them? Is it just the bottom line, how much I'm earning as my salary? Or what other benefits are people looking out for?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think people are very different, but we all share some things in common. We all want to experience mastery. We want to get good at something. We all want to have some level of autonomy. We don't want to be micromanaged and told what to do. and we all want some level of relatedness. So we want to be connected to something bigger than ourselves, a team, a family, things like that. The startup scene is different. I mean, since the 1960s in the US, Silicon Valley, where the startup scene really started, it's focused on flat hierarchies. So much not like a bank or a law firm. It's much more flat. People can go and excel based on their own worth and their own upskilling. And so I think people who are attracted to the startup scene like that. I think what's interesting in the startup scene today is that employees have almost had too much of the chaos, and they want a little bit more structure. And they want to know, where am I going in my career? How am I connected to others? And I think for Gen Z, this connectedness is quite different from the rest of us because they've had smartphones their whole life. So they feel related to people through their pocket, and they always have their whole life. I was speaking to my cousins who were born here. They're 16 and 14 years old. And I said, can you imagine a world without the internet? How would you socialize? And they couldn't even think about it because their social life and their sense of identity is tied into these smartphones. So I think Gen Z knows that they can relate. They know that they have friends no matter what. So they might be not looking for that relatedness as much through work. So those of us who are older and have the responsibility and privilege of leading organizations need to really take an extra effort to create that relatedness in a way that speaks to Gen Z.
Okay, thanks for that. Now, you've spoken about some freedom. People are looking for some element of freedom, but I'd like to know, how do you strike the balance between freedom and having some structure? And I'll give that question to you, Margaret, because, yes, people don't want to be micromanaged. They want to be able to do their thing. You just tell me what I need to do, I'll get it done. Don't keep on nagging me. But how do you strike that balance? And it's just reminding me of a situation where I had a new group of interns coming through, and this was at Gen Z, and I remember him coming to tell me, you know what, thanks for this internship position, but I won't be able to report from tomorrow. I'll report in a week's time because I have a liquor store that I need to manage, and I need to find somebody to manage it when I'm not away. So I just thought to myself, wow, the audacity. I was actually amazed. I was not even mad. I was like, the audacity of this group of people. It is what it is. I'm going to do the work, but just give me time. So how do we strike a balance between that? Getting the job done, giving you some freedom, but also knowing there are structures in place.
Okay. And like us who depended on a job 8 to 5 or 9 to 6, yes. They don't. Most of them live at home, or if they don't, they have a way of getting an apartment and sharing, so their lives are not as hard. We left home and we are told, enda fanya kazi and sort yourself out. So we believed in the 8 to 5 job, which is still there. All organizations have timelines. You must have a time when you come in and go out. So what has happened is to take all the generations into considerations, you have flexible time so that it fits into people, into all the generations. If you are an 8 o'clock person, being at 8, leave at 5. If you are a 9 o'clock, all that is what organizations are doing. You're taking your time to think of policies that encompasses all these generations, not just the Gen Zs, because in a workplace you have multiple generations. So that has to be there because an organization also needs some form of structure. You can't come in at 12 and decide to leave at 1. Work will get done. On top of that is organizations have very clear performance management systems where you just set your KPIs with your line manager and you move on. You know what you're supposed to deliver. If your organization does it quarterly like us, our KPIs are set on a quarterly basis. You set it with your line manager. We know how it's going to be measured, how we are going to review it, and everyone moves on. Also, managers do not want to be in a position where you are breathing down people and breathing down on people. If you're doing that, it means you're not managing your people, you're not managing their performance, you're not helping them. As a manager, you should be able to have the KPIs, and then what you do is support them, give them the resources, give them the guidance, coach them, so that they are able to do better, but not breathe down on them because you do not have a tool that enables you to manage. And he was telling me he has a tool to manage that. So you manage performance so that because everyone, even the business has its own KPIs. Everyone has a set of KPIs, the MDs, what the business is supposed to achieve. For it to come down, you have your strategy which has to trickle down to everybody. And that is what makes work meaningful because you are contributing to the well-being and the strategy of the business. So if they all know my contribution to the business is this, then everyone does their job without having an issue. And you master your time, you do within the timelines, you deliver and you go home and take care of your bar, take care of your chicken, no one bothers you, so long as everything is set and clear. And you have the support and from the teams, you have the support from your manager, and the business also has equipped you properly with to do the job.
Okay, thanks for that. And I like the way you're saying it just comes down to KPIs. If you are meeting your KPIs, that is fine. And just the way Jay said as well, these generations are not so much about being physically present in an office. They can communicate online and whatnot with the digital disruption. And Chris, I'd like to rope you in on this because the reality is that for sometimes some managers still don't see the relevance of such things as like remote working and whatnot. So if the Gen Zs and the millennials appreciate that, as long as I'm meeting my KPIs, I may not need to be at work physically every day. How do you get them to have that mind shift to understand that you don't necessarily need to be physically there, but you need to produce, you need to be productive, you need to meet your KPIs, because there's that mind shift, a difference between the different generations.
So is your question more around organizations adjusting or the Gen Zs themselves?
The organizations.
The organizations. So I think it's truly almost, it's incumbent upon organizations to adjust. If they don't, they won't survive. Basically what you're describing is a gig worker. And this has become mainstay. It's pretty much what the world is going to be in the future of work. Organizations are going to package work and basically subcontracted to gig workers. And especially, I mean, all of you, especially in Kenya, you can see how the economy is going through some turmoil. And so more and more companies will become creative around how to contract. And over and above that, you also have the leveraging of technology, which doesn't limit you to access talent that's sitting wherever in the world. So gig work then becomes more and more attractive. It's a better way of contracting for you to deploy talent sitting anywhere. You can get the best programmer perhaps sitting in Belarus, best graphic designer sitting in Jamaica, without the limitation of distance. And so it's attractive. And so the thing about employers is they just need to figure out more progressive policies. To her point, think about performance management done differently for this new demographic. Think about the fact that leverage data. There are now tools that allow you to test for productivity. So it's not just about finding out that you clocked in at 8 and finished at 7. It's about what have you actually produced. So depending on how we structure work, then it won't really matter where you're sitting, what time you clocked in. It's really about the output. So this is how organizations are slowly having to adjust. And the question is, are we in Kenya there yet? No, but you can all see the speed at which technology is moving. And so it's truly going to be incumbent upon organizations to think about this now and start putting in place measures to embrace gig workers. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. And you talked about leveraging on technology to look at productivity. And Jay, this is an area that you have some experience in. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit about how organizations can leverage on technology to share productivity.
Yeah. So the way we see it is that there's two sides to this coin. There's the productivity side, making sure people are driving KPIs, that there's the right processes in place to drive the KPIs, that those processes have the templates that create the tasks. That's one side. The other side is the employee as a human. Are they engaged? Do they want to be there? And it's very easy to track the KPIs and that side, but how do you get employees more engaged? It's a tricky question. It also takes a lot of managerial time to focus on everyone. Kenya is a young country, average age of 18, so to get everyone into the workforce, there aren't a ton of skilled managers with the time to do it. The approach we're taking is to actually organize the productivity data into a digital profile so that the young person can actually see in a way they're used to. They're used to their Snapchat or TikTok or whatever else the Gen Zs are into. So how do you organize that and make them feel good about driving productivity? Because KPIs are very important. Our software starts with KPIs. For something a little more innovative, you use OKRs, which is objectives and key results. But it can be a little bit dehumanizing, and it can create a sort of standard that which people rise to the KPI, and then they don't go above and beyond. And they think, if I can hit my KPI in half a day, why should I do anything else? And so you need to give a way to give recognition to the young people who really want to make it and to go above and beyond. And we haven't cracked it yet, but we're starting to work with customers in the US and customers here with C-suite executives who are very forward-looking. And I think the future is this, as I said, the alignment of productivity with also engagement and treating the people as humans at the same time.
Okay, thanks for that. And Margaret, as we're speaking about recreation and perks, what do you see as you work in your organization and just in general, the employment space? What is important to people? We've talked about remote working. We've talked about not having monotony. We've talked about being able to just experience your creativity without being stifled. What other important issues are employees looking out for when they talk of perks and recreation?
I think number one key is, as HR, we do a lot of talent pulse surveys to find out, because it's hard for you as a person to decide what makes you happy, what gets you engaged, is to do a survey and find out from people what really matters to them. And then what matters to them is, now you look at it from a strategic point of view and create a strategy around it. And if the business can afford, you also have to look at the affordability of all the things they want, and then decide on what works and what you can provide. So for the perks, apart from the money, that is really a big motivator. We all go to work for the perks and the normal medical, the pensions. People also want to be engaged. Everyone wants to go to a place where they feel the environment is conducive. The environment allows them to engage as human beings. The environment enables them to share ideas, innovate, and be the best they can, because you want to bring the best of yourself into that environment where there's team collaboration, team synergy. And with that, you are able now to develop activities, to develop ways of ensuring that these people have what they want, in a way that is also affordable to the business. Encouraging teamwork is critical for us in Samsung, in that it is part of our mantra. We have something called the DEVOTE: differentiation, efficiency, value, ownership, teamwork, and effectiveness. It drives us on a day-to-day. So we do not work in isolation. We must work as a team. We have team meetings where we have discussions, we share ideas, the challenges. We are able to come together as one, so that we are able to conquer whatever we need to conquer. We have rewards. We have a reward scheme for such, where we reward people who are team players, where we reward knowledge workers. Of course, we also reward those who go over and above their performance, their inputs, their outputs and inputs. So in terms of what people want, key is learn from, because different organizations, different people, do your survey, get to know what really matters to them. Then from there, develop your strategy to ensure that you are able to provide what can be provided. But key is engagement, engaging people beyond what it says, the KPI. Because you can, yes, get the KPIs done, but you leave out the human being. That being needs to be engaged differently. And it's very, very important that you have activities around it. We have something called the Great Working Place. We actually have a committee of employees from each department, and apart from the survey, they are the ones who pick information from their teams. And the teams, they come in as a committee and say, this is what I've gotten from the team. They share, we share ideas, and then decide what activity can we do then to ensure that we encompass that feedback. So it's very, very progressive, and we ensure that human and that engagement is there on a daily basis. So that's how we manage the perks that we can say are not monetary. Yeah.
I like that, just encompassing the human element, because what you think is important to somebody may not really be important to them. And Chris, I'd like you to talk a little bit about some of the little known or overlooked perks that can really cause employees to be loyal. I remember I was seeing a joke, but it was actually not a joke, about somebody who was saying that if there's a meeting and there's no food there, don't call me for it. I mean, why are we having that meeting? And they were also saying that food is one of those things that really matters to them. So there are some organizations that offer free food. To you, you might think, okay, what does food have to do with anything? But for some people, it matters to them. So what are some of these non-standard things that people can look at, organizations can look at, that can really cause people to be loyal and really even more engaged in their work?
Yeah. So again, forgive me for going back to technology, but technology is kind of the bedrock of all of these things. So the world in which we live in today, there's so much data that organizations are collecting that they can leverage. So there's one very interesting one where you can actually leverage your space to drive culture. And what they do is that they embed everyone in the organization, and obviously it's an opt-in kind of approach. You wear something called a social metric badge. And what it does is it tracks how you and where you're spending time in the office. Are you spending more time at the watering hole? Are you spending more time in the cafeteria? Who are you talking to? And then tracking that against productivity. And so, depending on how the data stacks up, then you design your buildings to bring out the best in people. You design your buildings to allow for something called chance collisions. Those chance collisions, allowing this person and this person to meet, creates some magic. So that's one. I think the other one is that we're now living in a world where we're talking about the experience economy. And all my colleagues here have spoken about the human. So really mapping out the experience of the employee to mirror the life they live at home. All of you wake up in the morning, you get onto your phone, you quickly probably check your WhatsApp, you open, depending on if you have the time, you probably will watch a clip on Netflix. In the evening, you watch a clip on Netflix, and it throws at you recommendations based on your preferences. So imagine working in an environment that also follows you and understands who you are and positions the right learning program in front of you, positions the right career choice in front of you. If you work in an organization that is leveraging AI to track you and follow you and do the right things for you at the right time, that's attractive, and that will make someone consider staying there. I talked about the environment. I talked about the fact that organizations now, with, again, leveraging data, can also find out the mental well-being of their staff just based on something they call, you could actually send micro surveys every 1 hour, say, how are you feeling? And I respond in a second. And based on that, I'm able to tell where there are pockets of disquiet in the organization, and by that, then I can also adapt my initiatives. So a lot of times, organizations are driving initiatives without data. Oh, guys will like pizza. Who said? Half of them want to eat vegetables. Half of them want to eat fruits. There's no data driving any of these initiatives. So again, data and technology is becoming more and more commoditized. So some of these things might sound so far-fetched, but they're so easy to implement, and it'll allow you to then make better insights based on what you're getting from the data. Yeah.
That's good. Data is king, really,
Absolutely.
in everything. And you've talked about mental health and just making sure that we have a conducive environment. And maybe I'll rope you in on this, Jay. How do you see mental health being an important factor in ensuring productivity in an organization? And how can organizations ensure that they're really ensuring their employees have good mental health so that they can be productive?
Yeah, I think it's an important question, and I think positioning it as mental health can be problematic, because either you're healthy or you're not. But how can you be mentally adaptable? How can you be mentally strong? These are questions that we all face in our families, in our relationships. We all bring in things from our childhood, from our relationships into the workplace. So I think really helping people to understand their own minds and their own emotions is important, and figuring out how to do that in a way that's respectful to people, respectful to the way different cultures talk about their psyches and their health. I think it's vital for everyone to have that experience of mental health. In some cases, it gets problematic to talk too much about mental health because you have young people who just don't feel like doing an assignment and they'll say, oh, I'm taking a mental health day. So how do you create a balance where people can do that, but where it's not taken advantage of?
Yeah, I like that. Yeah, you're taking a mental health break. So there's a thin line between between actual mental health and using it as an excuse. Margaret, can you add on to that how we can ensure that we are incorporating mental health within the workspace, but now it's not being used as an excuse, and also destigmatizing it, because sometimes conversations, just the way Jay said, it can be like, are you mentally healthy or are you not? So how do you destigmatize it and ensure that it's a priority?
I think for mental health, first is to let people acknowledge that it's not a bad thing. In Africa especially, mental health is not seen right, it has a lot of stigma. So it is to have open conversations, open discussions about it, that we all, as he says, come from a background and we all are carrying issues when you come to work. You are one person carrying a lot of issues. What we do, we have partnered with our medical providers. We do have an EAP program where you can call anytime and discuss with someone who is not within your circles. Because one thing with people is, as we come out of where we are with mental health issues, you feel more comfortable discussing with someone who doesn't know you, who has no idea who you are. And you can pick the call we have a free toll, a line. You call and discuss whatever you feel like discussing. When it comes to having that space, we ensure that in the office, the environment allows you to be. I think once you are who you are in the office, you feel freer, you feel you can discuss something with the next person without being judged, and removing the judgmental issues about around the mental health matters. So we've had lots of sessions. We bring in experts to talk to staff. We also have the EAP program, and we ensure that with your line manager, with your fellow employees, the mental health issue is not kept where we like keeping it as Africans or as human beings. It is something we can discuss. When it comes to what he says, how do you draw the line? Where I work, I don't think we have such issues. I'm taking a mental day off. What we try to do is to ensure that you also take your leave, that you leave the office on time, because such things affect your mental health. When you work late at night, you are not out to spend time with your family, with your friends. I mean, that hour is very important for you. Or even for me time, you need to go out and calm down. You may have had issues in the office, so go out and calm down, speak to your friends, hang out with your friends. If you are young people, you have your friends to hang out with. You have your family, if you are family-oriented. So it is giving people that space to leave office, to go out. When it's time for your weekend, please spend your weekend out of the office. So create the barrier between work and your personal life. Ensure that you manage your time properly. Time management is key. So we ensure that we ask people to take time management courses, ensure you're managing your time, and I also say, and managing your energy, because it depends on what time. Your energy is your time. When are you most productive? When you're most productive, do the work that needs to be done, so that you have hours that you're not as productive to clear your tray, and then go home or do whatever you please after work. So I think mental health is just really being able to balance that space out in the office and creating a barrier that helps you to pick up your personal life, and having that outside person or the helping hand to walk you through a journey that you may want to walk. You may not want other people to know, or may not want to involve third parties, but you have that other person to help you. And that's where most organizations are now partnering up with their medical providers to get you the employee assistance programs. And for some, even have counselors that come into the office. So when you feel you want that space, you have a counselor to go and see. If you don't have an in-house counselor, you still have the counselors that are in the panel to discuss with. And of course, we also say, have a friend in the office, someone you can cry with, lean on. It's very important.
I like the way you've talked about that distinction between work time is work time and then home time and family time or other activities time is that time. But then there's this argument that there's work-life balance. Then there's some who talk about work-life integration. So maybe you can speak a little bit to that, because there are people who are like, it just all integrates into one. So yes, you have your time away from the office, but it's not really.
Also have a struggle with the work-life balance. I am more of a work-life integration, because you will always think of work. Whether even when you have your me time, there's something that will crop up about work. Maybe, I need to do this, and you not jot it down. For me, it's really how then do you ensure that, yes, I have my work, and I'll still maybe think of work. Maybe someone is even chatting you, I need this. But it is to create some time, 1 hour, 2 hours, that you switch off from work completely, and then just enjoy with your family, enjoy with your friends, or if it's me time, it is me time watching a movie. As he says, we are all now we all have digital, we have the technology that makes sure everyone can reach you at what time. Just decide, from this time, it is my time, so everything goes on silent. And I have seen organizations you put on your email that between this time and this time, I'm not available. And people respect that, because it is my time. So respect of time also, it's about you. How do you teach people to respect your time, your free time? So you must have boundaries. You must ensure that you have set time to do what you need to do. If it means watching a movie for 2 hours, have your movies, and then you can go back and check who has written to me, who has done this, can I clear my work? But have that time you block for yourself. That's what I call integration, because there are times you'll never say, I will not pick the call. You could be a doctor and it's an emergency. So will you say someone will die? No. But once you have you've decided on managing your time and telling people what time can be reached and how you block your time, people will respect it. And most people will say, I will not call you because you've told me. And if there is an emergency, can I send you a text? And you say yes. So it is upon you to decide where work life or work integration comes in. Yeah.
Thanks for that. Now, Chris, I'd like us to talk a little bit about change management. We've spoken a lot about the Gen Zs and the millennials and what organizations can do. But also for the Gen Zs and the millennials, how can they also try and adapt to the situation? And what do you see within the recruitment space as the trends that are happening for Gen Zs and millennials when it comes to looking for opportunities? And what do they really need to do to adjust to the current working space?
Okay, so for the Gen Zs looking for jobs, I think for starters, organizations are not too concerned about credentials, which is what unfortunately has been sold to you by our parents, the millennials and older, that you need to get a degree, you need to go and do that ACCA, all great programs. The problem is the employers are not concerned about the credentials, they're concerned about the skill. Can you actually get stuff done? So my advice to you would be, in the next couple of years, organizations are going to shift and be more concerned about what you can do. And so spend time picking up on actual skills. If your career used to be a house that you put up with stone and brick, now it's going to be a tent which you put up, put down based on the weather, move it to a different location based on if there was a flood, there's a hill that is not making the surface stable enough. And so you're going to have to consistently adapt yourself. And so positioning yourself as someone who's done 2 degrees, a master's, a PhD is not going to matter anymore to employers. And so that's one. Number 2, more and more find opportunities. Even if you don't get an actual job, find an opportunity to volunteer somewhere so that you can actually gain hard skills. So you can get actual experience doing the work. Because again, to get this experience and these skills that we're talking about, you need to be somewhere where you have actually experienced it. So find, the jobs might not be forthcoming. And the challenge is, Claire, truly in our market, there are not enough jobs. And I give an example of the fact that with one job, for instance, accountant, since January, we're the largest, we pride ourselves as being the largest job board in Kenya. Since January, we received 139 accounting jobs. Guess how many applications we received? 40,000. 40,000 applications for 139 listings for accounting job. I haven't talked about sales, marketing, etc. And so all these young people did not get those jobs, majority. So the question is, if there are no jobs locally, where else are there jobs? To be honest, locally there might not be enough jobs, but globally, the world is your oyster. Pick up on skills that are indeed marketable across the globe. Spend some time on Coursera, YouTube. Pick up on actual skills. Find opportunities locally. Walk to your local church. Work to your local NGO. Offer yourself to work there for free. Learn skills. Go online, apply for some of those jobs which require you to have a portfolio of something that you've done. So are you a graphic designer? Where's your portfolio? Let's see. Are you an SEO marketer? Yes, where's your portfolio? This is what the future of work is going to be. And again, like I said, it's not enough that you have become an expert graphic designer. The end. You're going to constantly need to be in a mode of lifelong learning. Lifelong learning means you learned this skill today. What's new? Let me pick up on the next skill. It's going to require us to be very resilient. It's not easy for you to pick up a skill, drop another one, learn another one, and learn. It's not going to be easy. So back to the conversation about mental wellness, we truly are going to have to learn to be resilient, learn how to learn. Guess what the #1 course on Coursera is today? How to learn. Course #1. Course #2, how to become an expert learner. So these are the top skills, because it's going to be so hard to learn and unlearn and pick up on another skill, and that is the future. It's a very scary future because the pace of change is crazy. Today we're talking about generative AI. That's what's hot. I don't know if it's going to be as hot in the next. I mean, of course it's going to be hot, but it will have morphed into something else in the next 3 years. And so anyone learning generative AI today might not be the it, then it'll be the next thing. So the change for you Gen Z, millennials even, is to constantly be in a state of disruption.
Yeah, I like that, lifelong learning. And I'd like us to talk about, and I'll throw that question back to you, Chris. You're talking about taking up, let's say, volunteering experience, opportunities to get experience and whatnot. But the reality is that for some people, for Gen Zs, even some millennials, they're thinking, okay, I'm taking up this volunteering experience. Why aren't you paying me? What do you say to these people? Because there's that great debate about being paid for exposure, in quotes. Yeah, so like... some people look at it as exploitation. So how do we look at it like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to learn, because you're saying it's not about the degrees, the masters, the PhD, it's about that experience. So how do we strike the balance between, okay, I'd like to be paid, but at the same time, I'd also like to gain experience?
Yeah, I mean, and I empathize with that situation. I was perhaps where a lot of the fresh graduates are about 16 years ago, and all of us are looking to get some buck to pay for the bills. But on one hand, there's what you want, and on the other hand, there's reality. I just gave you a statistic around the number of jobs that are out there in one area since January. So the thing is, you're going to have to adapt and say, look, the jobs are not forthcoming, but I do need to get these skills. What will differentiate you from the person next to you? All of you have an ACCA, have a bachelor's degree. I think what will remind you that what you're doing is not useless is because you will be gaining tangible experience. You'll be getting networks. By being in that NGO, that church environment, or the mosque or the temple environment, you're meeting people. As opposed to sitting at home and waiting on that opportunity, you're meeting people, you're learning from them. One of the challenges we see with the Gen Z is that the ability to communicate clearly articulately, does not come naturally. Perhaps the school did not transfer that to you. And so this is your opportunity to get feedback, to learn from other people, to see what's actually happening in the industry so that you can keep pivoting and aligning yourself appropriately. So my admonishment to you is do not be comfortable sitting at home. Get an opportunity and go out there. It's the hard truth. Whether they're paying you or not, go there, get the skills, be proactive, an opportunity will come. Opportunity will surely come. But you do need to work on yourself first.
Okay, thanks for that. So don't be comfortable sitting at home. I think that's a good takeaway. We're almost at the Q&A section, so please hold those questions of yours. But as we conclude this session, I'd like to ask you, Jay, and we'll take that question around. How can we leverage technology? And we're talking about the Digital and Technology Week. How can we leverage on digital and technology to make sure that both parties, the employers, the employees, are getting the best out of their work experience?
It's a good question. I think that technology is taking over all parts of our life, all parts of work. I think asking people how they feel about it, making sure there's boundaries between when you can use digital technology to communicate with someone is important. I think in the long term, I would like to see a world where, today if you're getting a full-time job, you negotiate for salary, you negotiate for medical benefits. I'd like to see you negotiating for your performance reviews and your performance data, so that then that technology that's tracking how you're doing in your job can also help you get your next job and help you get promoted within the company. So I think that actually that data being transportable through your career is one of the ways I see technology being most liberating and empowering.
Wow, that's good. Back to that whole idea of data being king, yeah? Yeah, Margaret?
Digital and technology, as you say, is everything right now. It's what I can say, the mode or tool of productivity. Everyone wants the best phone, the fastest laptop. You do not want to run to the office to do your work. You can actually do your work as we are sitting here. Yes? So productivity on the move, I say. That's what I say technology has come. It's a value add to us. So we need to leverage technology in terms of our productivity. Yeah, we can work. We are told you can work everywhere. You're in Mombasa and you still continue to work. That's technology. The other thing is, as he says, skills development. You don't need to sit in a class. I find sitting in a class something my age love to do. I have to go and sit in a university and do many hours of studies. I want to learn on the go. I do my LinkedIn while driving. I learn wherever I am. So that's technology, leveraging technology in your own growth, leveraging technology in networking. If you're poor in networking, then use LinkedIn. You have all these Snapchats and all these platforms that you can leverage to meet people and pick conversations that will help you. It's not always about your fashion or what you're doing, posting photographs of where you've been. It's also about making sure that you have a very strong digital footprint. As he says, you do your volunteer work, go to LinkedIn, ensure everyone is there. Make sure that you utilize it so well. You can even be an opinion leader. Yeah, you could have studied something in school and you have your own opinion. Put it there and let people read. Recruiters love such things. They look out for people who have out there selling their skills, selling their knowledge to people in that digital platform. So I say there's a lot that you can do with a digital platform and utilize it not just as for work, but for your own growth and your own self.
That's good. You really look at your digital footprint. And what you've said has just reminded me about that conversation that I was having with that young gentleman who said his next opportunity after resigning came from LinkedIn. He just went hard onto LinkedIn. He started applying. He started contributing to conversations. And that's how he got his job. So that's really a good one. And how about you, Chris?
Yeah. So I think for starters, the appreciation that technology, for both employers and for job seekers, is an enabler and a disruptor. Today we are all kind of distracted by AI. but there's so many other technologies that are causing a disruption and can enable work. We're talking about 5G, machine learning, robotics, 3D printing, edge computing, etc., etc. So AI is just on the list. And so the question is, how do you position yourself as an employer or as a job seeker to take advantage of all these advances in technology? So what I've always said is, it's not enough to go to school, apply for jobs. Be curious, find out how is your job, the job of a marketer, going to be disrupted by AI. Spend time, read, because again, I hate to be the naysayer or the clairvoyant with bad news, is if you don't pay attention to what's disrupting your career, you may end up being classified as not the working class, but the useless class. This is, go and read a book by a guy called Yuval Harari, Israeli philosopher. He speaks about the emergence of the useless class. And what he says is that we will begin to see more and more people being disrupted out of their jobs. The jobs will be there, it's just that a lot of the work will be taken up by machines, the mundane, the repetitive tasks. And so organizations are quickly trying to understand how can we leverage technology to make our work faster, to increase our top line, to increase our bottom line. And a lot of employers leverage the biggest cost is people. So they will definitely jump at the opportunity to automate their process. So for you as an employee, your role is to find out, how can I be ahead of the curve? How can I consistently be ahead? How can I make sure I understand how I can leverage technology to make my role even that much better at the workplace? So I think those are some of the things I would say. Think about how you can leverage technology to make your work much faster, much smarter. I think that would be my advice to you.
Thanks for that. So just be curious. Yeah? We don't want to be part of the useless class, so make sure that you're ever learning. I think that has been a very empowering session. I think we can give a round of applause to our panelists and take in some questions. But remember, at the beginning of this panel, I had asked you to think about the 3 things that are important to you. Now, I just want 2 volunteers to tell me what their 3 things were at the beginning, and if they are changed, you're starting to rethink, or they are the same. 2 volunteers. Come on, come on. Let me not pick somebody. Can I pick somebody randomly? Can I pick you? You don't want to share? Anyone? Okay, fine. Then we'll ask a round of questions, maybe 2 questions, and then we can complete this session. Oh, okay.
Thank you very much. My name is Andrew Balongo Pere. I'm a freelance video content creator and marketer. And while you've shared a lot of nice insights, they're coming from your perspective. While it might seem actionable, it's actually not actionable for that person at their level. And there are so many factors that you're not addressing. Pardon me. So, for example, if you're saying go on LinkedIn or go on Coursera, that is great. But now, they are providing those learning experiences based on what they are seeing there on the ground. Here, we're not seeing any Africans or you producing that same content on the thought leadership. It's very easy to do this at a seminar because you're being invited. Oh yeah, you're slotting in your 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 1 hour, and then you leave. To actually create a learning experience means you have skin in the game. So please, I'm not saying this in a bad way, but you're lying to us, especially to the young generation. Because if you were to create a learning outcome based on what you're seeing in your marketplace, then it's valid because you know the cycle of when people are coming in, when people are needed, you're seeing the complacency, and then you indeed fill in the knowledge gaps. And this is notorious for especially Kenyan and the African context. So we speak at the younger generation and not give them the real tools they need to show up. So as a CEO, you're doing us and the environment and injustice. Number 2, this is talking about HR. HR, let me give an example. Online, there's this individual called Evans Carmichael. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he curates a lot of top 10 speeches, the top 10 wisdom points from speakers from all over the world, whatever industry. But his background is HR. I've noticed our HR people don't have thought leadership, or they're not on YouTube. It's very difficult to find them. The only person that comes to mind is Joanne, the career coach.
Right.
But you notice with her content, it's catered towards the career person. I've never seen content from creative HR, and we have so many agencies and marketing people here. Why? So you're saying do your due diligence and go out and get information, yet it is not easily accessible. If you compare right now, and we can even do this test, I'm making an assumption, but I know I'm going to be right most of the time. If we can find your white counterpart for your business, I'd like to compare the amount of information you've provided on your website and their website. They have frequently asked questions, and their frequently asked questions will sort out normally 70 to 80% of the journey that I can execute on my own. But Kenyan websites, they don't have that information.
Right.
So it sounds nice when you say this on the forum. But let's be honest, I'm willing to lend my energy to help you bridge the gap.
Yeah.
But then there's no connection even between the CEO and HR, and even HR with people like me who would like to volunteer as an option and what have you.
Yeah.
So we're not really addressing the behavioral limiting beliefs that you as the established environments are having that prevents me on the outside lending my intelligence towards the growth of your organization, my skill, and the environment.
Thank you. Can I respond?
Yes,
What's your
please.
name, gentlemen?
Andrew Balongo
Andrew.
Opere.
So, I think to start with, I acknowledge your comments. Unfortunately, you found the wrong person to lay that with, because I am actually one of the biggest digital providers of content. I started a podcast 4 years ago. Please, I ask you to look for it. It's called African Retooled. And what we spoke about was the future of work. And I've done probably 25 episodes speaking to local leaders, African leaders, about the future of their jobs, creating content, admonishing young people to actually get ahead of the curve. And funny thing is, we did this all before COVID, before even AI was a thing. So it doesn't still take away from what you're saying. The majority of my peers in the industry actually are exactly what you described. Today, again, to again support what you're saying, Brighter Mind as an organization has seen the gap in the skills in the market and the lack of constant communication or insight into what are the gaps, what can we do. So one of the things we've done is just 4 months ago, we partnered with USAID, and we're training 1,000 people on how to leverage e-commerce to drive their businesses. We've trained 500 so far. And what we're doing is we're even giving them additional stipend to be able to actually get onto those platforms. Because we're saying, look, as a job board, we can't be just concerned with advertising the available opportunities. We need to get involved in creating the jobs. So what we're doing is we're targeting 1,000 SMEs. In fact, it's likely to be more. And the goal is to say, how do we find brick and mortar business owners, power them with skills, digital skills, which we're talking about today, which are how to leverage SEO, how to take good pictures, how to do good videos of your content, and how to then create jobs. So this is something that Brighter Monday is doing. We are working with MasterCard Foundation in Nigeria through our sister company, Jobberman. And what we're doing is we've trained 1 million young people on skills that we think are important to the employers. So we're constantly talking to employers. We've enumerated the skills that are being looked for, and we're actually training. And we're training, and the goal is not just to train and position them for the jobs available in the market. We're even saying we might not have enough, because we're not the government, we can't create the jobs. We're even going abroad to try and matchmake and say, where are the jobs in London, in Germany, in San Francisco? You saw Ruto, our president, in San Francisco. We were lockstep with him in San Francisco, motivating employers to come to Kenya. Not necessarily take people there, to come and offshore their businesses here, with people we have trained, with our partnerships with Moringa, with some of the other tech hubs. And those Moringas and tech hubs, we are actually powering them with insight into what is actually lacking in the market. So I'd like to correct you that the majority indeed are exactly what you described, but not us, not at Brighter Monday, and not me as a Chris. I am probably one of the individuals in HR who've created a lot of content to try and support the ecosystem. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much for your response. And yes, please, I'd like both of you to respond, but I just have a quick question for you. You said two key elements, that your initiatives have been funded by USAID and MasterCard
It's
Foundation.
co-funded. So we pumped in half.
Co-funded.
We co-funded.
My question is just this. Where are the local investors? Where are our local African moneyed people and Kenyan money people? If these foundations see the money investment point of doing this, and you said you're the anomaly, you're like the Kipchoge of doing this on the ground.
Possibly.
Kipchoge is less than 1%. What about then the regular environment? That is my question.
So I can't speak for them, Robert.
Correct.
I can only speak for myself.
Correct.
And all we can do is come to forums like this to hope that more people are listening and can actually get involved. But for sure, I can't speak for everyone. I'm playing my role. The organization I work for is playing its role. Yeah, certainly.
Margaret, you can also add on to that conversation.
I would like to defend HRs a bit. There is a lot that they do. Maybe it just doesn't reach out to so many people. Yes, I understand, and I'm not taking it away from you. Maybe our reach and how we sort of delink HR from marketing, which is not a good thing, because we do things without realizing that we need to reach out to more people. So we don't market so much of what we do. But we are in so many WhatsApp groups, and you can see the number of things HRs go out there having talks. We even send the links to people. I personally would send to all my family and friends WhatsApp group that please tell your young ones there's this person offering this, there's this person offering. People do a lot of things from their own volition as HR. So I would not want to say, not 100%, but there are those who go. I have friends who have gone and given talks about how to position yourself, how to write CVs in their vernacular radio stations.
Correct.
Yeah, so there may be pockets of help. It is not reaching out, and yes, we may need to do much better. I think the IHRM Kweresi was supposed to be here. We need to market ourselves to be as aggressive as marketers in bringing out what we do. Though we are not doing it at the level that you say will help us. We are not out there talking about the thought leadership that is on ground, that will help our people. But we do it on very small scale. That said, also companies have their CSR projects, and they do it depending on their strategy. I'd give, for example, Samsung. We do what we call Samsung Innovation Campus. Being a technology company, we really try to promote that, because that's where we see the world is going. So with Samsung Innovation Campus, we have developed a curriculum for our AI, data analytics. We partner with colleges, especially for the vulnerable, because for us we partner with organizations that help the vulnerable. We give the resources in terms of the equipment. We give them the resource, the tools, the learning materials. We ensure that the teachers know how to deliver, and we follow through to ensure that people have the skill sets and they have the knowledge that is needed for the world. That's part of what we give as CSR. So yes, we are not out there saying a lot of things. So for you, you're wondering what? Yes, we need to improve on that. We need to improve on what we do and talk more so that our people know. And I really appreciate that feedback, because we do something they have done. I also am learning from him what they are doing. You see, you don't know. Some people are doing some things they don't know because we don't amplify what needs to be amplified. So majority of the people who have really also gotten a lot of help don't know, because we are not amplifying what we do. And that is where I can say, as HR, we need to pick from marketers and learn how to amplify the things we do and get to reach out to more and more people on ground. Because you're in Nairobi, maybe you got to hear about this.
Yeah.
What about those guys in Mashinani? They actually don't know. Do we need to go and to citizen and tell them, speak to the people in their vernaculars, because they need radios, not that they will get access online for everything. Maybe some don't have internet data. So yes, I appreciate we need to do more as HR and push what we are doing. At whatever little or whatever great we are doing, we need to push it down. Yes, I appreciate that.
And just a small lesson for you don't have to wait for Citizen. You have your own blog, your website. You have a brand that people come to your website and blog. It's very easy for you to share that one message. Even today, you'll be surprised with the reach it will continue to have even beyond. So remember, so even as you address the CV and all this, please address the reality of your world, of how you have to make a proper choice out of the amount of numbers. And maybe provide alternatives. Say maybe you can only take 2 people now. Guys, as you retool yourselves, maybe try these other industries that may be also looking. So give alternatives, but thank you.
Thanks for that. I like the healthy debate.
Yep.
Thanks so much. I'm not going to be an activist. Sorry for that. I mean, it appeared the questions are more of activism.
Not at all.
So I'm going to be asking just 3 questions to be quite specific, so that at least each one of you could have a question. Number 1, Chris, from where you sit, look at 2 candidates. One who is on LinkedIn Premium, and the other is on LinkedIn, the normal LinkedIn, your common wananchi. Is there an advantage that this guy on LinkedIn Premium has more than this other guy, assuming all their qualifications are the same? Number 2, I've looked at a situation where today people are not writing cover letter just typing. You post, you get to ChatGPT, you post the job description, you post your CV, then you command it to write you a cover letter, then you post there. Have you seen situations where guys are using actually AI tools actually to beat ATS? Because today, any job seeker out there, beat the ATS. The rest you'll face the HR. Beat the ATS. Whether you're qualified or not, the first thing is beat that ATS and then face the HR. You can be qualified and you don't know how to beat ATS. Have you seen those cases where consumers are actually applicants are trying to do that? Then lastly, here we are techies. Unfortunately, the observation I've made out there is techies, we are actually left to do what we are good at. What does it mean? Most of the techie companies, their CEOs are marketers. The CEOs, let me start with Safaricom. Ndegwa is not a techie guy. He's not. So it appears that the techie guys, I don't know whether the system has been put in such a way that if I'm a techie guy and I'm good in coding, nikae tu pale, hapo kwa coding, another guy who has done Bachelor of Arts and good in marketing to come and be a CEO. And that's why most of the organization, I don't know whether that's a wrong assumption, out there, you will find all of them are marketers. The techie guys, wamebaki hapa kwa coding. Then lastly, because interest of time.
Yes, please.
Interest of time. At what point should we now forget about the technology or techie knowledge, and now talk about soft skills? Because there are so many guys who are still focusing on technical skills at the age of 50, and maybe at that particular point, it is very late. Thank you. Thanks so much indeed.
Thanks for that. In the interest of time, I'll give you each 1 minute to respond. Chris, he talked about the LinkedIn Premium versus just the usual LinkedIn. Margaret, he talked about beating the ATS system using generative AI. And then you can also talk about, Jay, you can talk about the over 50s and people who can they really retool using technology at that point.
Yeah.
Chris.
So look, I can't speak for LinkedIn. LinkedIn is actually a job board just like mine, and a social networking platform. But I know for certain that it unlocks the opportunity for you to connect faster, reach some of the people you might be keen to reach much faster. So that might give you a leg up in terms of networking, I suspect. If I can speak to our platform and how we operate, the point is, especially employers who leverage one of our offerings called standard listing, we are not so concerned, like I said, we're not so concerned about how you show up on your CV, how you show up on your cover letter. That is level 1 sifting. It allows me to distinguish between a gardener and somebody who's actually done graphic design. And I can say, this job is not for gardener, I'll put you in this bucket, this one is for accountant. The next level is to deploy an assessment. So we have skills assessments, which allow us to then whittle even further down, based on what I said earlier, tangible skills. Can you actually code? Can you actually do this assignment? Can you actually add 1 + 1? On that basis, you then rank further up in the list. So we are not so concerned about, and especially we have kind of 2 offerings, the digital business, and we also have something we call retained search, where I headhunt for executives. When I headhunt for executives, I'm not so concerned about how well, whether they're on LinkedIn Premium or on LinkedIn, the ordinary one. In fact, so long as I can find your profile through my database, through networks that we possess as Brighter Monday, that's what matters most. We'll find you, we engage with you. Whether or not you have a LinkedIn Premium or an ordinary LinkedIn, we are concerned about your critical experiences, the qualifications, where you've studied, what you've done in the past, your experiences, your skills. That's what matters to us more. I think anyone telling you different will suddenly be lying to you. Yeah?
For that, Margaret?
On ATS, yes, people are and still are trying to beat the system. But as you know, once the recruiters understand you're beating this system, they go to the next level and put more measures in terms of ensuring they put the questions to ask what we call filtering questions. So they have key specific things that they need from you. So what they will do is they will ensure that they have those questions, which you will answer, and then that will filter to the next. So yes, the AI is there. It will do that for you, but you'll pass one stage. Then now you move to the filtering questions, and that is where now the difference comes in. Yeah, so people do, and recruiters are always upping their games in that. But I always say what you need to do is, instead of using ChatGPT, do it yourself. I'm always an advocate of do your own CV, look at the job requirement, tailor that CV, because you may have skills, even 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. It's how you position that skill. And then once you go through, you pass through the first filter, they will be able to see what he's saying, to pick up that you know, because it doesn't matter. You could also have had enough experience and you don't possess the skills. Yes, you put it on your CV, but when they ask you the questions, you are able to put that skill down to paper. So it is very important that you do your own CV, learn it, and we are also able to see that this one, because you can quickly calculate, you can quickly check the job, and you can tell this one, as much as you pass through, you're not. Because it will still come to us, and we still have to filter those CVs again. Yeah.
I think, I was just going to say, put differently, speaking to a techie, all of you, maybe there's a videographer in the room here, there are graphic designers, all of you will leverage the same tool to provide content for Coca-Cola, and another one will do it for Pepsi. At the end of the day, somebody has to come up with a creative approach to sales, because in terms of our graphics will both be amazing, because we both leverage ChatGPT, whatever generative AI solution there is. The next layer is where the challenge is going to be. So yes, we have made it easier for all of you to design a graphic post. The next challenge is now what next? What creativity are you bringing? So yes, to our point, you will move further up in the chain based on leveraging generative AI. But huko mbele, you will need to now bring your creativity to the table. Yeah? And a good recruiter, good companies will have to figure out how to pick out on that creativity to even sift further. And after creativity, then we need to look for the next thing. Maybe it's demographic that we're concerned. Maybe we're looking for a slightly younger person, slightly older. This role requires you to have, different roles, different things, right?
Okay, thanks. And to conclude, Jay, you can speak to that issue of the age factor just in under 1 minute.
Yeah, I think the human brain and humans are amazing. We keep learning our whole lives. I used to believe that our brains would sort of solidify in your 20s, but it's been proven that with the right mindset and the right emotional self-management, we can keep learning throughout our whole lives. So I think what older people have to offer is a depth of experience, particularly emotional experience and dealing with a lot of people and dealing with tough situations. I think the challenge is if you're older and you're used to a certain level of status and you have a certain mindset, it can be difficult to go into a growth mindset where you feel that a challenge is an opportunity to learn. So I think the most important thing is to make sure that you take it as a challenge and opportunity to learn, and that you level yourself. Try to stay balanced, not feeling too arrogant and above the learning, and not feeling low and defeated by the learning. So you take the learning experience as a peer, you take other people as peers, and you don't try not to speak down to others or try to speak up to them either. And I think that can create the mindset of continuous lifelong learning where older people can bring their very valuable life experience and usually better emotional control, which is a lot of what soft skills are, into the world alongside technology.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. Another round of applause to our panelists.